I'm glad to be here. It's exciting to see the launch of a new issue of Little Patuxent Review. It's such a great journal. Um, I'm going to read from my novel, Dixon Descending. The novel, the main character is Dixon, and Dixon is a nice, responsible, middle-aged man who works as a school psychologist at a middle school for a charter middle school for boys. And he's pretty complacent and settled in his life until his older brother, Nate, convinces him that they can be the first Black American men to summit Mount Everest. Now, in his youth, Dixon was an Olympic level runner, and he missed going to the Olympics by 2/10 of a second. And he decided, I'm never going to want anything like that again. I'm never going to give over. But Nate knows how to get under his skin and convince him, yes, we can do it. So they train hard. Dixon leaves behind incredulous friends and family, and most importantly, the boys who rely on him at his middle school to go off to climb Mount Everest. So here he is doing the most audacious thing he possibly can. And what drove me in writing the book was the inscription that's in the beginning from the climber David Brashears that says, oh, there's that ant. Hello, he wants to go to Mount Everest. The mountain doesn't care whether we're here or not. Everything it means to us is only what we bring to it. It's only what the mountain reveals about us that has any lasting value. So it's very much about the trip to Mount Everest, which takes up about 40 pages of the novel, but the consequences of doing the most audacious thing you can do and then having to live with what you discover about yourself and what happens on that mountain when you come back. And there are serious consequences for the boys that he leaves behind. So I'm going to read from the first chapter just a little bit. We're going to be on Mount Everest, so you're going to get some snow. It's going to be cold again. March 2011, Mount Everest. This first time, as they hoisted themselves onto the hip of the mountain, they had to simply learn to survive. Survive the landscape, the thin air, the unbelievable cold, the exquisite suffering. Each step of Dixon's crampons on ice was accompanied by a headache so intense he thought a tiny demon jabbed a pitchfork endlessly inside his ear. His stomach cramped. His tongue swelled against the roof of his dehydrated mouth. He inhaled heavily. At 18,000 feet and rising, his every breath was hard-won, a perfect, exhilarating orb of suffering. His brother Nate climbed just in front of him along a narrow path that stretched between ice boulders. Nate looked back at him, panting lightly but smiling, his black goggles gleaming on his face rock star-like. Man, we're in rare air. Black men on Everest. Dixon repeated it with awe. Black men on Everest, which was to say freed men, because their burdens here were of their own making. Blue-white ice glowed above their heads. They were climbing just above base camp, deep in the Khumbu icefall, a once cascading river, frozen now, mid-flow. It was a surreal landscape of ice boulders at improbable angles, perched along cliffs. The ground rumbled beneath their feet. It was a game of dodgeball, judging which boulder might tumble toward them. And this was only their first acclimatizing trip up the mountain. There would be 3 climbs, up ever higher, then back down, before they attempted the summit. 3 more chances to lose this survival game. An improbable game growing ever more ridiculous, not just skimming boulders, but spanning crevasses so impossibly deep they might emerge on the other side of the earth. They had chosen this, Dixon reminded himself, and squinted into the glare ahead of him. A stunning flash, a warning flare. The sun bounced off the aluminum shell of a ladder, well, 4 ladders actually, lashed together and spanning a crevasse slit deep and jagged in the ice. And he was expected to cross it. Unfathomable, all of it. Crevasses, ice blocks, mountains. A thrill seized his groin. He turned toward his loosely tethered band of 20 teammates, Sherpas and guides, their red and blue and yellow down suits iridescent against the snow. Lunatics did this kind of thing. Lunatics and heroes, Dixon thought, laughing, and which did he think he was? Both, he said aloud. Nate waited for Dixon near the ladder, his hands on his hips. Well, this might be it, you know what I mean? Nate leaned close so Dixon could hear him above the wind. It's that oh hell no moment. He made a sweeping gesture across the icefall. Ahead of them, the ladders were strung with safety ropes and bolted into the ice on either side of a crevasse. They still didn't look like a good idea. Dixon lifted his goggles and squinted at his brother, who stood one hand on his hip, a sly smile on his face. It was a challenge Dixon knew well. You expect me to believe you're throwing in the towel? Nate laughed. Hell no. He flexed his fingers against each other, tightening his gloves. How about I go first, Dixon said. He did not wait for an answer. Don't look down, Dixon warned himself, but how could he help it? The pale blue walls of ice below him darkened into a bottomless midnight. He stepped onto the ladders, his crampon spikes clunking on the metal rungs. The ladder swayed and complained under him, his body both weighed down and weightless in the thinning air. The wind howled around his ears. His heartbeat resonated in every vein, every muscle, every clench of his hands around the safety ropes. Thin ropes in his hands, slender rungs under his feet, he teetered above earth. A gust of wind bellowed in his ears and seemed to lift him like a kite. A belly drop, Dixon gripped the ropes as he felt himself caught up by the wind, the frightening roar in his ears. Dixon suspended midair. It seemed an endless ride on the bounce of wind. He was sure he would be swept away. He could not breathe. He might have expected his life to flash before his eyes, but he saw only sky, endless blue clouds swirling shapeless above him. It wasn't death he feared, but the feeling of nothingness, of expendability at the whim of the mountain. That jolt of air swept under him only momentarily, but Dixon was badly shaken. Mountain peaks loomed around him, the crevasse beneath him like a dare. He scrambled across the ladder to the other side, his breath heavy, his body trembling. A bead of fear trickled down his spine. The mountain had given him a stiff warning. Thank you.